Hey, what's up you guys? In this video we're gonna work on this ink bottle in 3ds Max and Substance Painter, so please like this video and share it around if you will. Okay, so we're gonna start working on this ink pot in 3ds Max, and the first thing we're going to do is to create the bottle or the pot, depending on what type of thing we are creating here. So this is going to be a small bottle that we're going to create. First of all, we're going to actually respect real world scale, because this thing, it's real small. It is about probably less than 10 centimeters at most. So for now, we're going to create that simple box, which is going to be the starting point from which we're gonna start doing our modeling, and it's gonna be extremely simple when it comes to this piece. The thing that we're gonna spend the biggest amount of time on is gonna be the feather. And for now, we're going, actually, as you can see here, we're gonna actually base our modeling here on the method that we call edge extrusion, which is basically you can keep holding shift and move the edges in order to extrude them. Okay, for now we're going to actually make sure that the area here in between is going to be smoother, so we're going to use the chamfer tool in order to smooth that this area out a little bit, because we don't want it to be that rough. We want it to be smooth and nice, and we're not going to overdo it. We're going to go with 2 or 3 segments or edges all around, and is gonna be looking nice and smooth. From the bottom, when it comes to the bottom, we're gonna do the same thing, but it's gonna be a little bit smaller, so we're not gonna be actually doing that obvious of a kind of a maneuver like we've done on the top. So it's gonna be real small, because it's not gonna be noticeable anyways, but the same trick applies here as well. So we're gonna chamfer that edge as well, like probably 2 times or something, 1 or 2 times at most. And for now, we're going to try to position it in a nice position, and also we'll actually create the neck of the bottle here, because it seems like we have to actually bring another simple geometry or primitive geometry, which is going to be a cylinder or a tube or whatever. I think we're going to go with a cylinder, as you can see, and we're going to make sure that we're going to actually bridge between them in a nice way that actually feels like they are one piece, which is something they should be. We're going to go with 16 probably, and we're going to make sure as well that we have 16 sides on the border that we have created previously, and we are going to delete some polygons that are going to be no longer necessary, and we're going to try to attach these 2 pieces together using a bridge. Okay, so in order to make this happen, we actually need extra edges. So what we'll do is we're gonna select these edges or the corners, and we're gonna actually chamfer those. We're gonna go with 2 segments. I believe 1 or 2 is gonna be enough. The most important thing is we're gonna end up with 16 sides on that border that the bridge is gonna be taking place. So for now we have 12. That means we're gonna have to add one. We're gonna add one edge on every side here, and this should do it. For now, we actually need to make these vertices a little bit round according to the border we have. So we're gonna push them apart using the scale tool, and I think for now we are ready to create that bridge. So what we will do is we will actually select and attach these 2 pieces and select the borders and then bridge between those, and you're going to be ready to actually continue working on the next pieces or the next parts of this bottle. So as you can see here, we are actually using the edge extrusion. As I said before, keep holding shift all the time and move the borders in order to control the process that we are actually we are kind of using here in order to create whatever we're creating here. So this is gonna be simple as long as you actually respect this method and how it works. You're gonna be able to create anything you want. All right, it seems like there is a little bit of an issue here with the proportion. So this is subject to change, as I always say. So matters of proportion, you can always actually change the size of any pieces or any parts of that piece you are working on at any given moment. But if you want accuracy, you can use reference images, and this is just fine if you want to use reference images. We're going to use some reference images for the next props we're going to work on. For this one here, we're going to use a reference image for the feather, because this is a little bit complicated and it's going to be a waste of time to actually doing it from our imagination or relying on our actually eyes in order to build that, and kind of the coordination between our eyes and hands and stuff. It's really difficult, so we're gonna have to rely on a real reference image that we're gonna actually follow in order to get that done. Okay, using the shell modifier here, as you can see, is gonna give us the thickness that we are looking for, and it's actually gonna save us some time, because it's going to be really difficult to do this using some traditional modeling techniques, because it's going to be time consuming and stuff. And for now, we're going to use the cut tool. Just right click, select the cut tool, and start connecting these vertices together, because they have to be connected. Otherwise, there's going to be a mess down here. Okay, for now we're gonna create a plane that will actually be used in order to use the reference image we were talking about. So I have reference image which is gonna be this feather here. You're going to use it in order to make sure that everything is gonna be taking place properly, and also we're gonna use it in order to get the modeling aspect right. We could have actually, I was going to use some kind of tricky techniques in Substance Painter and in Marmoset and stuff, dealing with opacity and transparency and stuff. But it's kind of takes some work, and it's a little bit tricky, so I decided to do it kind of old style, with kind of using primitive techniques, which are going to be modeling techniques. So we're gonna start off modeling this feather using a using a simple plane, and we're going to try building from that. This is gonna be a little bit time consuming and stuff. That's why you're gonna see the video speeding up a little bit, because the process is actually depends on the concept here. So if you want to actually do what I'm doing here, you cannot follow me step by step exactly what I'm doing, so you're gonna have to rely on your own judgment. So I'm gonna show you the way, I'm gonna show you the method how to do it, and then you're gonna do it on your own and try to actually follow the steps I have taken in order to, or the steps I took in order to get this thing done. So we're gonna use, obviously we're using the edge extrusion. Keep holding shift all the time and move the edges in order to extrude them. Try to follow the basic kind of silhouette of the feather, and the kind of the details that are kind of bumping out and branching out. The main body of this feather is gonna be taken care of later. So you're gonna keep doing this until you reach the top. Probably gonna add one edge in the center that connects everything together, as you can see here. This is not necessary, but it's gonna add up to it's gonna be a nice addition, because in the top we want it to be a little bit we want to have a little bit more control over the top, because we don't want it to look flat. So for now, as you can see, using the edge extrusion, we're going to create the overall shape of some of these details that are going to be branching out. And we don't have to be extra detailed here, because this is going to be really small, and probably you're not going to be seeing it at all unless there is a very close shot or something like that. So we're not gonna go crazy detailed here, because it's gonna be super time consuming, and it doesn't serve the purpose of creating something that is gonna be low poly model. Probably some of the details here we're gonna ignore, because we're not gonna be going super detailed. As we said before, the purpose here is to get something that looks like a to create something that looks like a feather. So for now, we will continue doing this until we actually get to the top. So this process is gonna be really repetitive. So for the most part, what we're gonna do is actually to follow this reference image we have, and we should be just fine. Of course, the goal here is to actually create something that looks like a feather from a distance. You don't have to go super detailed, as I said. So some of the minor details, we're not gonna take care of these, because they're not gonna be as important as you think. So I think you're going to actually work on the major stuff, and the things that are gonna be probably minor, probably later they're gonna be appearing on the low poly using the normal map. So probably on the high poly we're gonna add a little bit more details, but for the main the main low poly model of this feather, we're gonna go we're gonna do as little as we can in terms of how this is gonna look like from a distance, because actually this is probably when you look at it, probably in a game or in anything like that, probably it's the viewer is not gonna see the details that close, so probably there aren't gonna be very close up shots. And working on it with that accuracy doesn't make a lot of sense, actually. And I think this is already highly detailed, and it has so many polygons and stuff, and with the bacon in Substance Painter, it's gonna look much better. All right, it seems like we are making a good progress here, and you're gonna keep doing this until you cover most of the details. And if you think actually that some of these branches need to be actually a little bit more detailed, you can add one or two edges in between in order to make it actually look better, especially if that branch is gonna be a little bit bigger than the others. It is actually sometimes worth it to invest in one or two additional polygon or edge just in case, in order to follow the reference image accurately. So for now, it seems like for the most part we worked on the the silhouette we need in order to work on the high poly and on the low poly. So we're gonna add a shell modifier here because we need to give it thickness. Even though it is a feather, it's not flat, it's not that completely flat, it does have some thickness to it. So we're gonna go with something really thin in order to actually make it have 3 dimensions actually. So probably something I didn't talk about, which is gonna be in order to make this surface transparent, you're gonna use the X-ray mode, which is gonna be Alt X from the keyboard. And for now, we're gonna create that stick that is gonna be going through the feather in order to actually to make all these branches and all these little tiny tiny feathers kind of stitched together to one branch or one. This is imagine if this is a tree, kind of the same concept. Some kind of big stick in the middle, and there's gonna be some branches branching out, and this is gonna be the basic concept that we're gonna work with here. And of course, in order to make sure that this is gonna be taken care of accurately, we're gonna actually convert that that line we use in order to follow these details, and we're gonna convert it to Adobe Poly, and we're gonna start following the reference image, as you can see here. All right, so we're gonna modify the size or the thickness of this cylinder here that is gonna be going all the way up, and we're gonna make sure that it's gonna be smaller and smaller as we go up. All right, so when we reach the top, probably we're gonna close that up, and probably it's let's just take a closer look. It is, I think it is a little bit narrow, so this shouldn't be that big of a deal. So for now, after we actually finish working on that part, we're gonna try to give everything a unified material, and we're gonna try to push it out a little bit in order to see it better, and push the reference image a little bit away because we cannot see clearly what is going on right there. So for now, we are going actually to work on when it comes to the low poly version and the high poly version. There is going to be a difference. So we're going to work on the high poly. We're going to add, we're going to make it even more detailed, and we're going to give it a smoothing modifier. And when it comes to the low poly version, we're going to make it even low poly, and we're gonna do some processes that are gonna follow later, like smoothing groups and UV unwrapping and stuff. So we're gonna actually open the layer explorer, as you can see here, and we're going to create a low poly version and a high poly version. As I said before, you're gonna name them like something like inkpot or ink bottle underscore HP for the high poly and underscore LP for the low poly. And right now we're gonna start adding support edges. This process is very important because this is what allows this bottle here and the feather to look smooth, and the areas that we want them to be solid, we want to kind of keep them in place using this method, because actually 3ds Max doesn't know exactly which areas need to be soft and which areas need to be solid. So this is kind of our way of telling it what it should does. It does do a good job, but it doesn't understand kind of the what we are trying to, our intent is, because it is a software. So it kind of it's kind of something we have to do. Probably there are going to be actually there are some tools that are going to be very accurate, but for simplicity here, probably we're not gonna use them. There are some chamfering tools that are gonna be, or modifiers that are gonna be really quick, in order to make sure that the process of supporting the edges is gonna be easy as just one click or two clicks. But sometimes we're gonna have to do things manually. All right, so right now we are trying to support the edges here in that part, and it's gonna be a little bit crazy here because the amount of edges we're gonna use here is tremendous. So it doesn't really matter what the amount of edges we're gonna use here, but the most important thing is we're gonna end up with something that looks soft and interesting and kind of smooth and everything else. of course, we're gonna make some adjustments when it comes to some of these support edges, and if we think there's gonna be an issue, we're gonna go back and fix it. Probably we're gonna double check because there are so many edges we're gonna support here, so there is a high likelihood that we're gonna forget something. So probably gonna check it out and double check if necessary. Okay, so for these areas here, we're gonna try to actually make things a little bit interesting because we don't want to keep it as flat as it is. So adding these edges here is gonna make it look a little bit more natural and more realistic. Alright, so there are some crazy things going on here. So what I'm trying to do here is actually to extrude the sides here because I wanted actually to kind of do a little bit of extrusion on the sides, and it seems like the since this is gonna be very small, it's a little bit hard to deal with it. So bear with me here because this process is a little bit tedious. Okay, so when we are done with the process of supporting the edges, we're gonna go back to the low poly version and we're gonna start working on it. So there are a lot of edges and a lot of vertices that we don't need, so we're gonna get rid of those. So we're gonna collapse that area right there, and we should do a lot of this when it comes to the feather up there. So we're gonna actually connect a lot of vertices. So we're gonna go to the front viewport and we're gonna start using the what we call the target weld tool in order to target weld a lot of vertices. So we're gonna try to bring them back to the same point. And just be careful because sometimes there is gonna be actually interaction between the edges and stuff. It's gonna be problematic if this happens, so make sure that no two lines are gonna be crossing each other because it's gonna be problematic. Alright, so we're gonna do the same thing from the top. Alright, it seems like we've brought everything to one central point, which is a good thing actually, but we're gonna make sure that there aren't any problems. So this is kind of the problem I was talking about. If you see some kind of weird distortions in the mesh, it means that there are gonna be or there are some issues with how these edges are gonna be interacting with each other. Also, when it comes to these branches, we can do the same thing because it seems like There are some extra edges here or extra vertices that are not really necessary. You can delete the edges by hitting a control and a backspace from the keyboard. All right, when it comes to this central piece here, there aren't a lot of things we can do, and it seems like we're probably gonna keep it as it is. Alright, so we're gonna select the low poly and the high poly feather, and we're gonna actually bring them back a little bit because we want to place them correctly for now. Alright, so for now we're gonna go to the process of UV unwrapping. We're gonna use the box mapping method because sometimes it is gonna give us some results, but if that doesn't work, we're gonna use another method which is gonna be even better. So we're gonna actually discard the box modeling method and we're gonna go manual here. We're gonna actually select the edges, select one edge, then loop the edges that we need to for the sections we want to unwrap, and we're gonna have to be a little bit strategic here because this is very important. So when it comes to the bottom, we're gonna actually crop the bottom and we're gonna cut open the sides, as you can see here, and as you will see in a minute, this will make a lot of sense to you. So when it comes to this area, we're gonna actually cut open here some seams because we're gonna be using the pelt tool in order to actually make it flat. All right, so from the inside, we're going to do the same thing, but it's gonna be a little bit tedious of a task trying to cut these seams because it's from the interior side, and selecting these edges is gonna be a little bit challenging. Anyways, we're gonna work now on UV unwrapping some of these areas. So we're gonna select this one, pelt, commit, and then quick peel. This one here is gonna be very quick. We're just going to do a quick planer right there, and we're gonna use just directly quick peel, and it should work just fine. For this one, I'm gonna go with pelt as well, but it seems like there are some issues because the seams we cut open right there are not really following us exactly as we intended them to be, and the reason is not obvious, but I think there is a simple solution. I'm gonna go to Tools, Relax, and I'm gonna relax them a little bit like this, and everything should be just fine. For the bottom is gonna be flattened out, and we're gonna make it flat like this. If we wanted to relax it, we're gonna use the quick peel tool because it is the fastest way to relax anything. Actually, sometimes it doesn't work, but if it works, fine. If it doesn't, we're gonna rely on the traditional relax tool. All right, from the interior, it's gonna be a little bit interesting because we have little control over what we can see, so it's gonna be a little bit interesting. Okay, it seems like we have some kind of weird issue here, but it doesn't matter that much because it's not going to be seen since it is from the interior. And we'll try to get this right. Even though I think this is going to be a little bit different in terms of unwrapping for the most part, because it's not going to be seen, and we were not going to put a lot of emphasis on parts that are not going to be really important. So there are going to be so many different parts here and so many scattered pieces all over the place. In order to stitch some of these pieces, just shift S from the keyboard or right click and then stitch selected. Okay, so we're gonna organize these pieces a little bit here, and we're gonna spend some time trying to figure out how this is gonna look once we are once we are done with everything. And the challenge is to actually work with this one, because it was a little bit difficult to actually get this one right, because it's gonna be from the interior, and getting inside this bottle here with that camera that we are seeing through is gonna be a little bit difficult, and probably we're gonna treat it differently, so we'll see. Okay, for now we're gonna try to organize all these pieces, put them in the same place, and then we're gonna jump to work on the other piece. Okay, so for now we're gonna add the checker texture, which is gonna be important in order to make sure that everything is working properly with the process of UV unwrapping, because if there are any distortions or if there are any problems with how this is gonna look later, we're gonna discover that. So for now we're gonna jump to the other piece, which is gonna be this one here. We're going to actually simply just detach or kind of cut two seams from the bottom and from the top. I'm gonna actually cut one seam that is gonna go along from top to bottom, because we're gonna use the pelt tool in order to actually UV unwrap it. So we're gonna make these surfaces actually flat using the pelt using the pelt tool, and it's gonna be very simple and straightforward actually. Okay, we're gonna make it a little bit smaller, as you can see here, because um, it has to be so. There is also proportion between these UV elements that we need to respect. Okay, after we add the checker texture, we're gonna have to change the size a little bit in order to match it with the other pieces, which is really important, because as I said before, proportions need to be respected. Okay, finally for this one here, this one here is gonna be a mess. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna use the box mapping, the box unwrapping method here, and we're gonna end up with two big sides that we're gonna actually put aside because they are already done. So the problem is with the small pieces that are gonna be scattered all over the place. We can keep them scattered and actually randomized, like kind of any kind of set of pieces that are gonna be scattered all over the place, but we can actually stitch them. I just paused the video and stitch all the pieces that need to be stitched, and we ended up with something that looks like this, which is gonna be a little bit more organized and is gonna feel much better when dealing with UV template and texturing. Okay, when we add the checker texture, we're gonna actually make it a little bit smaller because it needs to be in order to match it with the other pieces. Okay, now we're gonna work on the UV template. After we attached all the pieces together, we need to apply another UV modifier, UVW modifier, and right now we're gonna bring all the pieces together in order to create what we call the UV template. So we're gonna start by putting the bigger pieces inside the UV template right there. And of course, we're gonna rotate things a little bit if this is gonna be necessary, or scale them or move them depending on what you want to do. So we're gonna make sure that there is enough room for the bigger pieces, and then we're gonna try to jam in the smaller pieces because they're gonna be less problematic. Okay, we're gonna try to organize some of these pieces nicely, and we're gonna try to find a little bit more extra space that we actually need to create in order to fit these pieces inside. Okay, sometimes we actually have to rearrange some of these pieces and their position if this is going to be necessary. Probably you're going to feel like there is a better arrangement you can do. Go for that. Okay, when we are done with the process of UV unwrapping, I'm gonna export the UV template, and we're going to also start to rename our pieces. This is gonna be really important for the process of texturing and in Substance Painter and baking for the most part. So for baking, this is extremely important. It's very crucial. There are actually three pieces here that we need to rename. We're gonna find some simple, straightforward names in order to do this. We're gonna use a suffix for the high poly, which is gonna be underscore HP, or underscore high, or underscore high poly, whatever name you want. This is the most important thing that Substance Painter will be able to distinguish and know the difference between the high poly and the low poly, and it's gonna be able to actually bake them properly and bake the maps properly. What suffix you actually use doesn't matter. Also, there is one important thing you need to know, and that is there is kind of stupid thing, probably seems trivial, but it is really important. So Substance Painter will not be able to read your bake. Kind of if there are different, if you actually by mistake or by accident you change how the how your this, I'm finding a hard time explaining this, but it's very simple. You need to actually after the underscore, you're gonna actually make sure that you need big letters or kind of couple of letters and small letters. This is very important. You're gonna match it exactly as you write it in 3ds Max. So we are right now in the process of making baking, and as you can see here, we brought the low poly model, and we're gonna actually change some parameters, and we're gonna actually make sure we enter the same correct suffix we used in 3ds Max. But it's gonna be very simple if you are paying attention. We're gonna actually enter some parameters here, and it shouldn't be that difficult. So this is something that I usually do in every tutorial I create, and it does not have to be that complicated. It's very simple, and it does need a little bit of training, but for the most part, if you export your files correctly, you're gonna be finding it easy, and it shouldn't be that difficult. Okay, after the bake is done, we should end up with something that looks like this. And when it comes to the texturing process, it's gonna be actually not that difficult. So what we will do is we will add actually smart material that you can see here, and it's actually very good for that bottle. And to be honest, there aren't a lot of things we can do here, but there are some few things we can add in Photoshop that will actually make this process better. Okay, right now we added some dust right there because we want some variation in the color and the texture of that bottle, and we can just play with some parameters here, and with the color of the dust probably we're gonna make it a little bit less obvious because we don't want it to be pronounced and all over the place, because it's not gonna look as good as it should be, and it's not gonna look natural either. So I'm gonna reduce the amount of dust particles right there. We want with something. We want to go with something much less than that. Okay, so as you can see, we are trying to make things look a little bit better with that dust and stuff. Okay, it seems like the dust is obvious, and it appears a little bit when we take a close-up look, but it's not over. It's not been overdone. So for now, we're gonna actually add another fill layer. This one is gonna be is gonna be important as well, because it's gonna be for the that stick inside the feather. So it's gonna be wood or something like that. It has that color, by the way. So we're gonna go with something brown or something, and we're gonna try to find the color we want to go with. Add a black mask and select the only that part that we need. Okay, for now we're gonna add another fill layer, which is gonna be this one is gonna be for the feather itself, and it's gonna be it's not gonna be important what the color is, but for actually for the most part it's gonna be brownish. So it's gonna look something like this, because for the most part the texturing of this part is gonna be done in Photoshop. So we're gonna pick up the right color, and we're gonna export the I just exported the maps from Substance Painter. Probably I didn't show you that, but for now we're gonna bring actually the texture we used in order to use as a reference image. We're gonna place it exactly on top of the what we have here in the UV template, and we're gonna bring it to Substance Painter. So we're gonna add a black mask, add a fill, and export that mask we created in Substance Painter, actually in Photoshop, and we're gonna apply it right there on top of that feather, and we should be able to see something like this. And we're gonna change some parameters, which is gonna be for this one the height the height value, or the height information, in order to create those details and to make it look like something realistic. Okay, so when we actually right now we're gonna export the maps once again, and we'll end up with something that looks like this. So this is gonna be the base color that we exported from Substance Painter. It doesn't look like it, but it is a good it is a good way to actually work on the normal map, actually on the base color in Photoshop. So what we'll do right now is we will bring the colored feather and place it exactly on top of the area we want, using the UV template. So we're gonna bring that colored feather, and we're gonna place it exactly on the UV template. There is a stupid thing that I've done, which is actually I should have done that from the start, and kind of placed it the colored one exactly on top of the where the position is on top of the UV template, and then converted this one to a black and white one, and then created the mask from that. That could have been easier, but I didn't think about that earlier, because I was thinking about the normal map details before the details of the base color. So we're gonna try to position it in a nice way. It doesn't have to be that big of a deal, but you do have to be a little bit accurate, because at the end of the day you're gonna have to make it look identical from both sides. And the problem is with the normal map, then if you don't get it right, probably it's gonna be a little bit not that interesting. So so far we are actually doing a good job, and we created the model, and we worked on the maps we actually done some texturing, and right now we are in Marmoset because we can see the result of our work here. So we're gonna bring the normal map that we exported from Substance Painter, and we're gonna bring the base color we worked on in 3ds actually in Photoshop, and we will be able to, there is actually we'll be able to see a nice result after that. So this is how it looks like. This is the work we've done in Photoshop. This is how it looks like, and yeah, I hope you liked it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe to our channel if you're new, and maybe consider being part of our Patreon, because this is gonna help you to get all the tutorials early on without a lot of waiting, and you're gonna get all the files with it. Thank you very much.